following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome back to Celtic World Order on another bright and sunny afternoon. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. As always, whether you're watching live or whether you come back to this retrospectively at some later point in the day. Myself, as always, is Steve O'Martin. I'm joined again by our boy on the left. Well, my left, your right maybe, is Josh McCafferty. He looks a bit sleepy, but a wee bit delayed. We do apologise, but Josh has been out and he's been training for a charity run for cancer, so I'm sure you'll not have any issues with a man being late when he's getting himself ready, getting himself into the best version of himself, if you would, for such a worthy cause. Josh, good afternoon on this cracking day. How you feeling? I mean, I know you've been a run, mate, but you feeling good?
Aye, a wee bit tired, but always boost the endorphins, done it. Try to get into the best version, much like Celtic at the minute. So no, doing good.
No, absolutely, mate. I fair take your hat off to this weather. I don't know what it's like out where you are, but it's certainly sun splitting the trees here, and it's a cracking day. I don't know if I'd be up for going out taking on a run in this weather, so I take my hat off to you. That as well, the fact you're working towards it for charity. So cracking effort. Anyway, as we say to everybody, welcome. Just a wee bit of a chat through as a wee casual afternoon chat as we look towards the biggest game, let's face it, of easily well over a decade come the weekend as we take on Rangers. We've said this time and time and time again, there's so much on the line. You know, there's not only a trophy on the line, there's not only 3 in a row for Celtic on the line, there's also a potential cash pot in European place, upwards of 60 million on the line. So if ever you can say that this one is one that really matters, well, it's definitely Saturday. Before we kick off and we just go on the wee chat there, as we always say here at CWO, right now the operation is small. It's down to yourselves. It's down to everybody to help do the part to make that rapid expansion happen. We're currently just around about 350 subscribers, which for a small channel inside a month, I think is a good effort, and that's all down to everybody there. So thank you very much. The next milestone would be 500, I guess. Let's help ourselves get there. It's quite easy, you know what to do. It takes 2 seconds, and it goes a long way, and we appreciate it. So if you like what we do, if you like what you see in here, make sure that you hit that subscribe icon. That means every time these videos like this go out, you will get notified, and you'll never miss a beat. If you like it, give it a wee thumbs up. If you want to help out further, you can share your links to ourselves anywhere on your social media, and that just gets more people in the door, more eyes on, gets us recommended, and helps grow the community. You can also get us next at CWO Pod 1888, and we're also at Celtic World Order Podcast on Old School Facebook. That's it. That's done. In the bin. Get that down, and let's get down to business, as they say. So, Josh, you know what? Standard fare, isn't it? It's all been a wee bit quiet. A couple of things have come out, as you'd imagine. We'll get around them. The refereeing appointment. There's been another announcement of awards or people up for awards, not in a Celtic capacity, of course. And of course, we saw manager and we saw captain do the wee Celtic TV interviews yesterday. Just as a wee sort of quick snapshot, how's the nerves? How's the confidence? Where are you at this moment in time, mate?
I know. I think it's always, for me, I don't know what other fans think. I think a lot of people deal with it. I say deal with it as if it's like a loss of a family member, but it's that big a thing that you have to deal with it in a certain way. So I think for me, it's always on your mind ticking over when you're doing stuff during the week. But then I feel like come Friday night, tomorrow night is when I'll start to get a wee bit nervy, a wee bit giddy. But I guess at the end of the day, it's all down to Saturday, isn't it? It's all down to what happens on the pitch. It doesn't really matter if you're nervy the night before. I'm sure all fans will be, players will be a wee bit as well, let's be honest. But like you say, massive game. So much on the line this weekend. You know, if Celtic get the victory, it's practically over.
It's practically over, isn't it? I mean, I've went through the emotions as you always do, don't you? You know, last time we sort of spoke, I was feeling 100% confident. I even went to say as far as to say if we can't beat this Celtic team and beat them, this Rangers team, and beat them comfortably, then we deserve nothing. High praise after a very good performance against Hearts. I'm still confident in the terms of I don't think we'll lose the match. Am I quite where I was thinking that we're just going to blow them away? I think as you get closer to the event, the sense head comes in, as you said, the nerves come in, and you sort of remind yourself that the games have been close this season. Yep. So any idea that this is going to be a formality, it's going to be a cakewalk, you know, I've fallen out that headspace. I'm feeling it's going to be a wee bit more tight, but I am more still confident. So as we say, a couple of things that came out. Let's just get straight down to manager, I guess. We had McGregor and we had obviously Brendan Rodgers the other day there, Celtic TV interviews, although you can still get them. There's not too much, mind-blowing stuff being said there. But the one thing, as we said, and it is our sort of subject of the day, is Brendan Rodgers says about it being a best version of Celtic. And that just sort of begs the question, are we seeing the best version of both Celtic and our manager as we go into this stage of the season? It's obviously been up and down from both. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. We've seen the manager getting pelters. We've seen the great tactical awareness, and we've also seen maybe mismanagement in terms of his comments of this quality, coincided with dip of form. Do you think that we know he says it before in his words, this is when we kick in and all that kind of stuff. But are we seeing a rejuvenated Rodgers and the way he's conducting himself as well as the team? Are we?
I think Brendan, there's a lot of chat about this box office Brendan type thing. And I think when it comes to crunch time, he's been over the course several times and he knows how to win trophies at clubs. He won the FA Cup with Leicester, although he didn't win anything with Liverpool. He took them very close, and he's come up to Celtic before and won several trophies, an invincible treble, a double treble, won 7 out of 7 before he departed. So he knows what he's doing. And I think the way he's dealt with the media, the way he's dealt with the team over the past couple of weeks and months at this run-in at a crucial point in the season has been very good. You looked at the weekend saying we'll have a bit of fun. I think that's just frustrated Rangers and got in the head of Philip Clement very much so. The weekend, you look at other comments that he's made, I think he's done really well. And the best version comments said that I would agree with it. You look at the whole season, Celtic coming alive is another thing he said.
Yep.
You look at the best version, this is the first time Celtic have had a whole squad fit, a clean bill of health throughout the whole campaign, and it's no coincidence that put in their best performance of the season on Saturday against Hearts. So certainly I would agree with the point that it is probably Celtic's best version. And I think if it is the best version of Celtic at this point in the season, with 3 league games to go, I think that just shows how tough of a campaign it's been. Amount of disruptions, the manager's talked about it several times and he's been in press conferences, like the amount of injuries Celtic have had off the pitch. He's talked about this not being a real sense of harmony perhaps between the club, the players, the supporters, and I would perhaps agree with that. You look at the first 6 months of the season, there wasn't really much unity surrounding Celtic, and when you have that unity between the support, the players, everything comes together, and that's what we've got now, and that's what it certainly felt like in the stadium on Saturday. Everyone was together for one cause, and the fans realise how much the team need their support to go over the line between now and the end of the season, and they're certainly giving them that back, and it's really good to see. And if Celtic can come alive again this Saturday, then I'm sure we'll be all happy.
No, we said before, the weekend was massive in terms of atmosphere, and it was certainly something that hasn't been experienced in a long, long time. Aside from a derby match, but even European, it was a real return to form. You saw the crowd, and it was as if everything had really came together, and it was a unit, and it wasn't willing on the team and pushing everybody on and wanting to get through. In terms of this sort of, you're saying about the earlier stages, just to rewind back and reflect on this season in general, are you feeling that when we first had that sort of uncertainty, that we sort of a disconnect? Let's look at this season and think of the amount of things that we've had to actually overcome. You touched on Brendan previously being over the run of the sort of seasons, invincible treble, all that kind of stuff. If we rewind back to that time to now, of course, you can only beat what's in front of you. But in terms of overall quality, the teams that were around us, what we were facing, who was challenging, the competition levels weren't quite there. That doesn't diminish that from Rodgers, of course. You go unbeaten in every tournament that you play in, is more Europe aside, of course, is an incredible feat. But we're facing a lot more, and he is facing a lot more adversity this season than he'll have ever, probably in most seasons that he's been at. Maybe if you take aside when he was at Leicester, Celtic related, we're talking, he's not really faced this level of adversity. We've seen the sort of mismanagement from a standpoint of recruitment. We've seen a transition period where a manager that everybody absolutely lauded and loved sort of I guess, crept out the back door. There was a lot of ill feeling there towards that. And then with a guy returning who a lot of fans certainly didn't want, there was a toxic atmosphere there. He's having to battle around that. Then we've got off the field stuff. We've got, the likes of the incidents between the Green Brigade and the board. And there's been multiple hurdles on this journey that have just made things a little bit harder for him, is it not? That
Yeah,
we have to take that into account.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a hard season. Like, I think a lot of people are saying if Celtic do win this league, it'll be one of the sweetest title wins in recent years, and I think that's just down to the amount of adversity I would say there's been throughout the campaign. Even the Green Brigade stuff, like you said, it's been so much, not rubbish, but just off the field debacles that you just don't need, especially when you're in a very tight title race. Although Celtic were 7 points clear, that gap was closed by about December time, and frankly down to Celtic's poor form. They kind of let Rangers back into this title race. Although Clermont come in, done a decent job, got them winning games that they should be winning. Celtic threw it away, conceding late goals. Motherwell, Kilmarnock, losing to Hearts at home, and other bad results. So it has been tough, definitely, like you say, and it's just goes to show how much good stuff the manager has done, that he's managed to pull this team through and get them playing in a very good manner going into a massive game at the weekend, and that Celtic are well and truly in the driving seat with 3 games to go, 3 points clear with 3 games to go. That's an old adage that my dad uses. In fact, he always says that if you're 9 points clear with 9 games to go, you've won it. 6 points with 6 games, 4 points, 4 games, etc. Celtic are 3 points clear with 3 games to go now. It would be it would be a disaster, I feel, if Celtic lost this league title now. But they're in the driving seat, and they've just got to make sure they get over the line.
Yeah, I think that, certainly in terms of being the best version, Brendan Rodgers at times is, he's cut a real sort of frustrated figure throughout the course of the season. I think he came in, at the first end when he first comes into the club, it's all trying to rebuild bridges, isn't it? It's about sort of, I guess, almost towing the line. You're wanting to strike that balance between saying, I'm a team player, if you will. It's not all about me coming in, maybe sort of fluffing the nest, if you will, with the board. Maybe that didn't quite work out, as we know, in terms of the recruitment side of things. Maybe it was too nice in that respect. But saying the right things in the media, saying the right things to the fans, and trying to get everybody on side. And as we say, it has fought for sort of, there's been real adversity all through the season for him, and I don't ever really feel, we've had a few quips here and there where he said sort of certain things and we went, yes, that's what we want for the manager. I don't know if it's been the sort of change behind the scenes where people have been moving on. We'll get round to it. There's been a reshuffle in terms of recruiting as well that's came recently this week, but perhaps maybe there's been a disconnect between him and some people back behind the scenes. They seem to have moved on. There's maybe been a player here and there that he's not really fancied there out the club. Maybe they're a distraction. But for me, it just feels that pretty much, I guess, since the turn of the year, that's when I think that even the turn of the year, maybe getting into as late as February into March, that's for me when we've really started to get something back that resembles a real genuine, confident, genuine believing Brendan Rodgers, which seems a bit crazy, does it not? Because, we talk about getting through a transition, with a change from one manager to the other. Obviously, there was no doubt that Brendan Rodgers was the best candidate in terms of pedigree available out there that we could have got in. But there was probably this idea that we would have just come in and it was like giving an experienced hand the reins and it would have been complete plain sailing. So is the timing, is it surprised you any level that it's taken this level for it, this length of time for it to sort of look like what we were maybe expecting?
Yeah, for me it probably has actually. I expected, well, you look at the start of the season, what was it, by the end of September, Celtic were 7 points clear at the top of the table, and everyone's chanting the league's over, and probably rightly so at that point.
Yeah.
And from there to say that Celtic really won't reach their best until, like, what is it now? Beginning of May, we're sitting in the 9th of May recording this. It is a long time. And you look at the recruitment, I think that's played a big part in it. Guys like Kwon, Marco Tilio, Tilio's made one appearance. I don't think Kwon's made one competitive appearance for Celtic. Guys like Lagerbielke, Nawrocki, even in years gone by, people like Bernabei who have come into the club. Rodgers clearly doesn't rate these guys, and it's shown that a lot of them haven't played under him. And that's definitely played a part because, look, Greg Taylor's still our only fit left back at the minute. If he gets injured, you're stuffed. You're looking at a guy like Liam Scales playing at left back now if Greg Taylor gets an injury and leads up to this derby. So it shows a lot of what Brendan thinks about some of the players he had at hand, and that's certainly played a part in his thinking, going through it from the start of the season to the end. Bernabei got a run of games, and guys like Yang have come in and out of the team. Palma, I don't think's up to the standard of a starting Celtic winger at the minute as well. And to deal with that squad and the players he's had, I think he's done very well. And to eventually pull through and have Celtic still in the driving seat for this title with a couple of games to go. Like he's brought in Adam Ida, but that was only by chance he brought in Adam Ida because he got the phone call from the agent. And Nicholas Kuhn, you could argue, is he a Rodgers signing? Is he a guy like Mark Law signing?
I'm still not settled on that one, if I'm being honest.
I think the jury's still out on Nicholas Kuhn. But yeah, I think he's done well considering the adversities he's had and recruitment. But has it taken a while, more than I expected? Yeah, it has. You expect Celtic just off the back of a treble. Although there's a change in manager, you look at who they've brought in. Brendan Rodgers, like you say, he's been over the course several times. There might be more of a challenge this time, but just off the back of an FA Cup win with Leicester, you expect him to come back and not a seamless transition, but perhaps be not a bigger transition that you're having to wait till May to see Celtic at their best. But a lot of that's been down to poor recruitment, I would say, and subpar players being brought in the door. But now there seems to be a real sense of harmony and unity going into this stage. And in the summer's going to be critical. We'll talk about recruitment in a bit, but as long as they don't repeat the previous mistakes, then they can build on the team that's there now going into next season.
See, that's the thing. It's easy to throw shade on where we've been this season, particularly as we say, is because we got ourselves completely in front. Now, we weren't, let's be honest, that we weren't playing particularly blistering football even at that time when we found ourselves so far ahead. It was similarly to us dropping the points here, it was a complete bundle of circumstances all wrapped together. Rangers themselves were very, very poor, losing games, and we just happened to be winning. It wasn't like we were still putting teams to the sword, 3-4, 5-0 and the likes and cruising them. We were getting by 1-0, 2-1, stuff like that. It was just enough to get ourselves ahead. And it's kind of funny because I think when we get through this season, when we remove ourselves from that expecting everything and, the sort of must win, of course, that's always going to be as at Celtic, but that must win, must be comfortable, must be always in top sort of mindset that we maybe have been acquainted to, we will look upon it and say that was a transition season. Now, that's not an excuse. We don't want to use the term transition can be used to cover a multitude of sins, right? Rangers can argue the point that coming to bring in a manager halfway through, they're in transition. Yes and no. Because they went in with a settled manager from the previous season who was given, I think, around about 20 million plus, I believe, to spend on players of his choosing and brought them all in. And he was just carrying on the status quo of what their supposed vision of play was. It wasn't until later on that they found out that the guy was just kidding them all on, and he was, the proverbial second-hand car salesman that had loads of brilliant chat but couldn't execute the game plan. So in terms of them being in transition, perhaps, maybe. But we've been in a constant transition the full season. And it's been transitions not only between personnel of the manager and the players and trying to get that connect. There's been transitions between building bridges and the board. There's been transitions with the fans. There's been multiple things that it would have been easy to throw that as an excuse. But when you actually get into the nitty-gritty and you look and we say, right, it's taking this long for us to kick on, you can now look at these elements and say that has affected us. That has massively affected us. And if you look as well, again, when Green Brigade were removed from the stadium, home and away fixtures was a wee bit of sort of turmoil and disconnect. All the chants to sack the board and that. Yes, something that should be getting said, but again, creating in, becoming a negative. Now that that's all removed, now that that's been shelved for a wee bit, you're starting to see what we want. We're starting to get the upshot and form. So yeah, these things are massive. At the time, I didn't play down, if you will, and say they're out the stadium, they don't have a massive effect. But you do see it now. And you look at Saturday, you look at the game against Hearts, you see how massive that makes and how much that feeds into it. And Rodgers said as much in his press conference to Celtic TV. is it funny how these things work out, that when we can take a wee step back, we say, do you know what, these actually were huge. And it was just that demanding of, no, it's Brendan Rodgers and the biggest team and the most money and blah, 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 that it's unacceptable. Does it all make a wee bit of sense now?
In terms of sense, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I feel like throughout this season, there's never been one point, maybe apart from now, where there's been a sense of stability at Celtic. There's always seems to be one point of adversity. And what I would take as a really good example is one of the first games back after the winter break, Ross County, 1-0 at home. It was team were booed off the park and they won the game. Now that goes to show Celtic were in the depths of the adversity then. The performance that day for me was very similar to the one at Dens Park a couple of weeks ago, where Celtic won 2-1, narrow victory. Now, two very similar performances, both at different parts of the season. One of them, the team get booed off, and the other, the team went off to tremendous applause, fans singing, chanting. And that just shows how far things have come in terms of building a sense of unity, sense of settlement and less adversity at the club. So, yeah, massive, and things have taken a really good turn for the better. I think someone's drilling outside my house now. Don't know what that is. But they're just trying to upset yeah, I know they're trying to upset the sense of settlement at Celtic at the minute. But no, very good, and I think that's just 2 points that throughout the season there's been several. You could argue the win at Fir Park where Adam Ida scored at the last minute was a turning point victory. You could argue the win at Easter Road where Adam Ida scored the 2 penalties was a turning point victory. And the win over Hearts at the weekend was massive as well. There's been several big points throughout this campaign where things have really stepped up. And I think after that win against Motherwell, that's when the sense of unity really kicked into play.
That is the one for me, mate. I'm glad you brought that up. That's the first time I really saw a fire in the belly and sort of thought, right, we can do this.
Even after the game, I remember Rodgers coming over to the Celtic fans. Now, usually he's a really reserved figure, Brendan, particularly in the dugout. But he gave a big fist pump and a cheer. Now, that is not something you see very often from him. I feel from that point onwards, there's been this sense of unity and that, right, this team's really going to kick on now, and this is the point where Celtic come alive. And after that game as well, Brendan Rodgers, another example of his really good demeanour in the media and how he acts, he said, there's been a story already written about this team. This team will write their own story. And I think from that point on, Celtic have certainly written their own story. And I think he's tried to install a siege mentality at the club and among the players. And I think it's worked a treat in the way they've performed since then. And they've done really well.
So if we touch on that one comment that he did say, best version, we just have a wee look back at it. See if you actually think about it. It begs the question, and obviously it opens up what you've just said about recruitment and things like that and everything else. If I were to say to you right now on the 9th of May, the best version of Celtic get into a game against Rangers, a huge game against Rangers, a title defining, a financial, bank account inflating result or match, at the weekend, that the best version of Celtic would look like pretty much an Ange team minus Jota, Abada. But you would have Liam Scales in at centre half. You'd have Taylor in at left back. Would you have thought to yourself, that is the best version? I mean, that seems crazy, but that shows where we are. So if you look back at the weekend as we play Hearts and roll them over, what does it say about where we are that there's no summer signings on that pitch?
Yeah, definitely.
You look at it and you've got Taylor, you've got Scales, you've got Forrest. These are guys that have been around, and you look at the bench, Palma, Yang, Norotsky, Bernardo, they're all sitting on the bench. They're the guys that are supposed to bring in and lift us up, whether you thought they were great signings or different. They're the bulk of the summer signings. That is what we've got, but that's what we're playing. And now we're looking at it and saying at the weekend, Maeda, we know Maeda things, but the question is it going to be Kuhn or is it going to be Forrest? And that's the best version of Celtic getting into a game like that. That seems mind-blowing, but also at the same time quite impressive, is it not?
Yeah, 100%. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, innit? It's the old saying. And listen, I think it shows a lot where Celtic are at the minute. Like you say, no summer signings in the pitch. James Forrest has scored 3 goals in the last 3 games. He's been a key player for Celtic in a title run in, and it shows a lot of what Brendan Rodgers is getting out of this squad. in my opinion. Like the fact he's not playing any summer signings, like you say, Yang, Nawrocki, Bernardo, all on the bench, be it someone come on at the weekend. It shows a lot of what he thinks of the recruitment in the summer, because I don't think he played a big part in it.
Yeah.
And it shows a lot of how he's got good stuff out of the squad. A lot of people criticise Liam Scales, and I think they're right to do so. I've certainly criticised him at several points out of this season. But for him to be the starting centre back at the minute, just signing a new 4-year deal at the weekend, no one's really going to displace him in the team at the minute, it seems, for Brendan Rodgers to be getting that out of him, because we've seen where he was when under Ange Postecoglou. I think he's done a really good job, and I think the manager deserves a lot of praise that perhaps he's not getting from certain people in Scottish football at the minute, and I think he's done a really good job. And from, do you think this is going to be the best version of Celtic? Yes, it is a bit shocking that Greg Taylor, who I think a lot of people would argue is not really up to the highest standard, you're not too confident with him starting a Champions League game at left back, he's still playing. You've got Scales, who should be an Aberdeen player right now. He'd have signed for Aberdeen if it wasn't for injuries. You've got guys like Nicholas Kuhn, jury's still out on him, Forrest still starting games. Shows how good the manager has done with this team and the job he's done all season.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Even look at the best version, not just the where we are at this period in the season. Obviously, we've got key players back. And if you think back to, I want to say, match day 2, maybe even match day 3, that's the sort of last time that we've really had something that looks like what we're now seeing, where we've had, Hatate, McGregor, O'Reilly together, or we've had a more solid and predictable defensive unit. If you look through the Rangers games, the first one we started off with Turnbull and Lagerbielke in there. They were never going to be first choices. All right, you can argue the toss that Lagerbielke comes in as a signing, and perhaps that's something that we would have expected to see early on. But in terms of where are they now, one's left and one might as well have left completely out the picture. We go to the second game. We've got Bernardo and Palmer coming in. Again, a change in round because we don't have Rio Hatate sitting there. We don't have the available midfield. And then the third one, again, we don't have a Cal McGregor. We've got a Wata deputising, and we've got Kuhn in place as well. So it really has been chopping and changing throughout the course of the season. And again, I've always tried to play down the impact that injuries have had, and sort of says, from what the resources we've got, that we should still have enough to beat the best of the rest. Yeah. And that is very true. We maybe don't have the strength and depth that would have helped and made those drop points not occur. But you do start to see where we've been in this fortunate position in the last few games where we do have the full complement, the full selection of players to choose from. And in that respect, we have the best version because we have all the options in front of us. It's crazy to think, isn't it, when you just look back there to see how much positions have chopped and changed?
Yeah, I know. Throughout all 3 derbies this season, there's been 3 different centre-half partnerships. Scales and Lagerbielke, Scales and Welsh in the New Year derby.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Scales and Carter Vickers at Ibrox. So this will be the first one where it's been 2 of the same that start the last 2 derbies, Scales and Carter Vickers. And you could argue when he's come back into that game, Carter Vickers really wasn't probably fully fit. Neither was Rio Hatate at Ibrox. He returned from injury the week prior against Livingston. So it's the first time those 2 guys are going to play the derby this season where they're fully fit and firing. Rio Hatate certainly had another really good performance at the weekend. So it's mental, the disruption. And that's just shown the derby game's just a one showing of that. That's just been the case throughout the whole season where there's been transition in the team, inconsistency of Wata, McGregor, whether it be Ida getting a run of games, Kyogo, who starts in the wing. There's not been 2 set wingers. Last season and season before under Postecoglou, we knew it was a competition between Jota, Abada and Maeda for the wing spots. Now we don't really know. Is it going to be Forrest? Is it going to be Dyson, Kuhn? Is it going to be Mikey Johnston was getting games earlier in the season? It's absolutely mental. And guys like him and Turnbull, like we had them running about the park at Ibrox, like you say, and we still managed to come away with a victory early in the season, which I still find mental. So it's been unbelievable. Like this season has just played out in a way that when Brendan Rodgers came back to the club, no one would have anticipated. I think a lot of people were, I mean, I was probably thinking this myself, said we're going to go and do another treble, building a position of strength. But factors have come into play, recruitment, other things, disruptions off the park, Green Brigade, you name it. Everything that probably could have gone wrong this season has probably went wrong at one point or another. Like, I think a lot of people are making comparisons between this campaign and the COVID year, just in terms of things that have gone wrong. Now, I don't think that is a correct comparison to make, but there certainly has been some, at least similarities.
As we say, there's been enough adversity, hasn't there?
Yeah, exactly. It's just been unbelievable. And for the manager to have dealt with it and the players to have dealt with it in the way they have, like guys like Matt O'Reilly, apart from like a 1 or 2 month dip, he's been relatively consistent throughout the campaign. Guys like Callum McGregor, he's not been up to the standard the past couple of weeks, but he's done well. You look at Joe Hart in goal, consistent performances. He's only missed one game, and that was away at Motherwell because he was suspended throughout. Except from that, he's been really, really good throughout this season. And it's guys like that you need in a team. Liam Scales, people will criticise him, but he's done a job for Celtic at the heart of defence this season. Do I think he should be a starting centre-back next season? Absolutely not. But he's done a job. And you need people like that when you have seasons of adversity to be constant in the team and consistently putting in 7, 8 out of 10 performances each week to go on and help you get to where you want to be at the end of the season.
No, it's about standing and being counted, isn't it? It's, sometimes, you can literally pee with the tools you've got. And that's what we've been doing here. The expectancy level versus what we were served up are two different things. And again, I think it speaks volumes of the character of some of these players that you're saying that have just came to the fore and really made it count, seized an opportunity, and are playing with everything that they've got to make sure that we can get over the line. And that also reflects on the manager. Just to touch on what you said about the old dreaded COVID season, because there was sort of parallels in terms of the dip off of form and the way things were going. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and lie. When we did start to really, really drop the points and we started to fade and the sort of manager was cutting that frustrated figure, almost disinterested, dare I say it, there was points where I was, and again, I know it's reactionary, that's football fandom, but I was genuinely, questioning Brendan Rodgers' intentions. Will he be here? Will he be here? Should he be here? It felt as if we could potentially have been sliding into that irreparable damage points-wise stage in the league. And fans would be right to question. But does that say a lot about the manager and the strength of character that he's got, that he's continued to fight on? And that's been aided by guys helping him out, because one other thing that came out was the new awards up for it. And it's the manager, I think it's Players Writer, this one. And you've got Football Writers Player of the Manager of the Year, and you've got the same candidates, but they've clipped on Philip Clement onto that. Now, I understand he's come in and he potentially, let's not be ignorant, they are still potentially on a cusp of a treble. They could still do it. Obviously, we're in a strong position to say that it wouldn't happen, but what's for the balance of, sense, it could happen. He's been clipped in there, and as we've said before, speaking about him, I don't think he's reinvented the wheel with them. He's made them win games that they should be winning. But that record over the last 8 games isn't fantastic. Whereas you've got Rodgers, and you could say, well, why is he not in the picture? Because equally, he's the real roller coaster. He's had ups and downs and bounced back and came. Would there have been any funny looks if Rodgers, and should he have been added in that equation? If you can put Clement in, could you also throw in Rodgers?
I think you certainly can. What puzzles me about these awards, whether it be Scottish Football Writer, PFA Player of the Year, is that they hand them out before the end of the season, or they name the shortlist before the end of the season. Now, for me, I said this to you guys in the group chat, that Philip Clement could end this season 6 points behind Celtic, and when he came in the door, Rangers were 7 points behind Celtic. 1 point of a bit of a progression. Is that progression? 1 point behind, gaining 1 point in your rivals from being 7 points behind? Absolutely not. And listen, he could go on and win a treble, like you're saying. If he did, then fair play to him, probably is Manager of the Year. But to be potentially losing the league by 6 points when you came in and you're 7 points behind, all he's done is really then won a League Cup. If Rangers don't succeed in the next 2 Derby games, then I don't think he's worthy of it. So I don't know why they hand out the short lists now. I think they should do it at the end of the season when things are said and done, and you've won what. It doesn't make sense. Is he worthy of a nomination now? Probably, but then if he's worthy, Brendan Rodgers is more than worthy as well. If it was the Aberdeen manager that had been through this amount of adversity, the Aberdeen fans turning against the board, having players like Miovski out injured for the campaign, if you have your main centre-back like Stefan Gartenmann out injured for the whole of the season and you only really have 2 or 3 guys who are consistently performing in your team, if that was the Aberdeen manager and he had them sitting in pole position for third ahead of someone like Hearts, he would be well within the conversation for manager of the year. But because it seems to be that it's Brendan Rodgers and Celtic and that's what they should be, he's not in the picture, which to me doesn't make sense. I don't know why. If you got to include one, you got to include the other for me. But he's not. And the other candidates are well worthy. John McGlynn's had an invincible season at Falkirk, done really well. Tony Docherty's been brilliant at Dundee. McInnes has done a good job at Kelly. So those guys are certainly worth it. And I'm not saying Clement's not worth it, but if he is, then Rodgers should be in the equation. I know you can only nominate 4 people, but at the end of the day, that's just the way it is, and I'm sure Rodgers won't be losing any sleep because of this.
Oh, do you know, there was actually a comment here, and you seem to be quite down with these sort of things. So I'll ask you. One of the commenters mentioned earlier on that when Rodgers got that manager of the season, manager, sorry, the month, the other month there, is that his only time that he's actually picked up a solo award this season?
That's a very good question. I can't recall him actually winning it once this season. I don't think he has. I'm going to look that up now. Actually, that's a very good question.
Because it came up and I wasn't quite so sure, but it did come up in the comments there, and it actually got me thinking. Do you know what? I can't recall. I think it might be, which again is crazy when you think of if that is the case, particularly the period where we were in cruise control and so far ahead. But not just that, when we've dug out these results and turned it back round. So it may well be the case, it may not be. It was just that it came up and I didn't know the answer. So we'll find out anyway. But either way, I don't think there's been too much going on there. But no, I think what you're saying is completely true about the balance of looking at these awards. And I always think it's a bit of a farce. I always think that it should be judged. I know that, close season and players go away and do things in European football and that maybe they can't do it. But really, you should be giving out these awards right at the very end of the season. Like it should be, because you get the full picture to choose for. And anything can happen because, let's just say they were crazy and voted Clement to go and win it, and then Celtic go on to win a double. You look stupid, So out of the options, I don't think that he will win it. I think you've got to look at the people who've actually achieved something, and their work is set in stone. But no, that is crazy.
Rodgers has won it once. He won it in September. It was
right.
So that's the only time he's won it, and then he won it in April. Right. So the other guys who have won it: Stephen Robinson, McInnes, Naismith, McInnes, then Clement twice. Then Tony Docherty, then Rodgers again. So Rodgers won it September and April. It's only 2 throughout the season. Still obviously May, but
No, it's still surprising. Still, there you go. Still surprising in that situation. But no, I think that's not surprised. The way that things have went. We always got to have 2 managers. We say before, and we'll get around that as well. That in Glasgow, one's got to be the flavour of the month, and one's got to be sort of the sort of class clown, if you will. They've had their shots at Rodgers. They've tried to bring him down. I think he's conducted himself fantastically. The level of professionalism, he's not batting anything unlike our other counterpart across the city, who has been biting left, right and centre. But listen, we'll get the game to look to. And another thing that came out, and everybody gets everybody sort of going, is the appointment of the officials. And listen, I want to get your thoughts on it. It's going to be our Willie Collum. Say our Willie. By the way, for anybody in case you want to cut this up, that's not me saying our Willie, the Celtic supporter, before you jump on that, right? But I think it's crazy, right? Because you've got Willie Collum, and you've got Don Robertson, and you've got McLean as well in there on VAR, right? But yet the narrative that gets spun out is wheeling out the big boys for them at such a time. Willie Collum getting one of their own in the biggest match, blah, 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 blah. It's almost laughable, isn't it, Josh? When we look through the season, Collum's been nowhere near it. We've seen Beaton, we've seen Walsh, we've seen everybody else. And then, do you know what it is? They wheel him out because he's due one. I think all your grade ones at that level are due to get one of the sort of Glasgow derbies, and it's his time to come round here. I'd be concerned regardless. I don't think there's any referee out there that I feel particularly confident one way or another with. And we'll get into the bones of Willie Collum, but the one thing that I would say is, and I think it's very, very convenient, and it always sort of irks me, Willie Collum, let's just get the obvious straight out the way. Willie Collum, yes, he is a Roman Catholic. Yes, he attends church. We've seen the pictures that they like to pull out of him at Carfin Grotto when he's doing the reading in church and things like that. We've seen that. We get all this nonsense about he's a Catholic, he's one of them. That seems to be the biggest sway. Now, I don't know Willie Collum personally. I know nothing about him. If you want to bring it back to draconian base level stuff that all Catholics support Celtic and all Protestants support Rangers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Willie Collum's family. I don't know about him. If you want to play that basic game, is there a chance that maybe his background is off a Celtic sporting ilk? Perhaps, but you never see it. You never hear it. You never see him or family members or anything wearing Celtic shirts at games and, things like that. Whereas if we look to other refs in the league, quite openly, being season ticket holders, you've got family posts, at lodges, at pubs, all okay, but falling a faith, bad, set on fire, can't be allowed.
It's mental. I don't know. It's a tough situation. I just think in general Scottish referees are incompetent, and that's because they're part time. Mostly every league in Europe, the referees are full time. These Scottish referees go to a day job. Willie Collum's a teacher. Well, he doesn't work in a classroom anymore, but he works in a kind of education board role. He's not a full-time referee, and that's not these guys' main job. They go along at a weekend to earn an extra £500 when they referee games. Like, it should be much better than that for me, Scottish officiating, but at the end of the day, that's the way it is. This stuff about Willie Collum being a Roman Catholic, I don't think that has any part to play whatsoever. Like you say, he's never shown that he's a Celtic man compared to what other referees have about Rangers, whether it be David Dickinson, whether it be John Beaton. I don't think there's nothing in it, and for me, if Celtic are good enough on the day, they'll win the game. But at the end of the day, it can come into it. We've seen it before, how Celtic have been done at Tynecastle. Ibrox, it should never have been a penalty. The Alistair Johnston tackling Fabio Silva, he dived. So, listen, officiating can come into it. But at the end of the day, if Celtic are good enough, like Jock Stein said, if you're good enough, the officials shouldn't matter.
We shouldn't. We should be doing our own job. But I just wanted to touch on the referee because of that. As I say, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this will be the first time since the complaint, is it not?
He refereed Rangers in the cup game against Ayr United at Ibrox, where they won 2-1 or 3-1 that game, 2-0 maybe. But
so it's a second appearance, if you will, in terms of being a league game anyway, since that big complaint, which is fascinating because, as we say, as Rodgers came out, Celtic made and voiced concerns around about beating Don Robertson, and then we get hit with the Don Robertson stick. I think it was 3 out of 5 and multiple beatings. So, they've taken a different tact, which we became almost acquainted to when it comes to Celtic concerns. But what do you think around it, the sort of thing? Now, I've always maintained, I think, and this is blanket, no matter what their backgrounds is, and as you say, and we've discussed as well, speaking about how we improve it. We've done the sort of, we've done shows where we've spoke about it, about going professional, about trying to expand, all that kind of stuff. There's no doubt that the Scottish refereeing is, the standard is in the bin, and that's why they don't get used for Euros. It's why they don't get used for World Cup, why they don't get used for Champions League, etc. That's a side story. I think they're all equally as bad, but I'm intrigued and I'm interested with this one here because of the timing of it. Now, as it says, I've always maintained with regards to Willie Collum, I'm not saying he's doing a deliberate act, but I've always felt that he has been one of the referees against Celtic and against Rangers, but against Celtic. Remember, he's a guy that heard contact when he was back to a lot. I'm going long back. But he's been beat around the head with that stick so much of he's one of them that in some cases I actually think, whether deliberate or not, he's went to an extreme to try and prove I am not one of them by giving some wild decisions against Celtic. He's tried to play it so straight, so down the middle, that it's been kind of his detriment, but it's, it's
Yeah.
affected his game. Are you concerned around him being thrown in almost as like, I guess, a sacrificial lamb, if you will, from Crawford Allen and getting thrown into such a game with everything that's around it?
Yeah, well, it is his first derby of the season, isn't it? And it's his first, well, that he's officiating,
It's
refereeing wise.
£1,500. A lino, I believe, gets 800. So it's more on top of your job. Sorry, on you go,
Yeah,
Josh.
it's mental. Refereeing. I'm qualified to referee. I'm Cat 7, I think I am. But I can only referee schoolboy games and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of money in it if you fancy refereeing at the top level. But yeah, listen, am I concerned about the appointment? I think I'm concerned about any referee refereeing a game at the top level in Scotland just because of their incompetency. And Willie Collum falls into that category. Whether he's making decisions to prove some Rangers fans wrong, I don't know. Unconscious bias is a thing, and whether he's a Celtic fan or not, we don't actually know. Listen, it could be a big tin, and we have absolutely no clue because he keeps it under wraps. Unlike guys like Beaton and guys like Dickinson, but at the end of the day, I'm not too bothered about whoever referees the game. I'm only really bothered if it's one of Beaton or Dickinson because we know they're known Rangers men, and also whether
What
it
about
be
the VAR thing? Because obviously Stephen McLean comes into that, and we've seen VAR essentially refereeing games for us anyway. Is that any concerns around that? Unless so, Willie?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah, because VAR certainly can have its say. You look at the derby at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago, it should never have been a penalty, and John Beaton made the correct decision to book Silva for diving, but VAR comes in, intervenes, rescinds the yellow card and gives Rangers a penalty. So yeah, it can have a part to play, and it will have a part to play this weekend. But yeah, it's just the way the cookie crumbles at the minute. I think it's just something we have to deal with. Whether it's right or wrong, that's just the way it is.
I think that's the hard thing for me. In terms of Willie Collum, as he says, they're all pretty much off a similar level. I think there's complete inconsistencies and poor quality across the board. Generally speaking, in my experiences, I think that most of the referees, again, I've had my thoughts and been not had it on many of them. I think in general terms, particularly the last game, I thought the game flowed all right. Okay, there was lots of stupid, innocuous fouls and all that kind of slowing down the game, different tactics. But in general, when it came to some of the key decisions across the board of the season, I think they've been not bad. But it's when the VAR thing comes in, that's more the concern for me. I've no doubt that Willie Collum will probably just try to cruise and be balanced in terms of the amount of players he books each side and what constitutes a foul. My biggest concern is the mental strength, as you says, when they get called over to that monitor. That's where my concern more around Column comes in rather than any decision he may or may not make on field.
Yeah.
It's that pressure he getting called over that monitor. Will he be big and brave to either make the right decision and go with it or say, no, I don't agree with it? That's the one that always gets me. But as you say, it's down to ourselves to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to kick on. We need to get the job done and make anything that could have happened, win the game in spite of what VAR and refereeing decisions might happen. But do you think it's going to have to be 2 goals clear?
Yeah.
It feels now that one's not enough. You need almost a 2-goal buffer for the just in case, don't you?
Yeah, almost two's never enough at some point. Look at Dens Park last week. Dundee made it 2-1 and Celtic were rocking for the last 15 minutes of that game. So I think one's certainly never enough because you can get a dodgy penalty out of nothing, it seems, these days. And 2 perhaps can never be enough as well. As we've seen at Parkhead earlier in the campaign, Celtic 2-0 up, last 10 minutes. Tavernier scores a free kick. Suddenly it's panic stations against a 10-man Rangers team. So, yeah, I think this weekend, I think if Celtic get the first goal, I think it will be not a formality, but it gives you certainly a lot more confidence, especially whole crowd behind Celtic. Cameron Carvick has touched on this after the game at Ibrox, where he said it's almost impossible to defend at times when you have that whole crowd against you. Almost feels like the ball's being sucked into the net. Rangers constantly attacking. It's so hard to get out. And that's how the Rangers players are going to feel this weekend. Home advantage, especially when there's no away fans, is massive in these games. And Celtic support will be right behind the team at the weekend, I'm sure. and the place will be rocking at 5 minutes to 12 on Saturday morning. So I'm sure it'll be advantage Celtic, at least in the home sense. I always feel, even if there isn't away fans, the home side always has the slight 5% advantage maybe over the other team. But I think with the crowd at Parkhead, it'll be absolutely bouncing at the weekend, and that gives the players an extra few yards. We've seen it against Hearts at the weekend. It certainly galvanises them, and hopefully they can do it again this weekend.
So, see, in terms of just touching on the game before we finish up,
Yeah,
where do you feel it's going to sort of sit? Because there's no doubt, in terms of pressure, is all the pressure on Rangers? I think most would agree that, yeah, it is, because they know they need to win. We just don't need to lose, which I don't think, well, certainly nobody plays for a draw. Celtic won't be getting into a home match in front of a full crowd with the momentum we've got, with the confidence, with the mindset, the space that we're in at the moment, and play for a draw. It's just simply not going to happen. But how do you, from a tactical standpoint, see it playing out? Because Rangers go there and they know that they have to win. They have to win. Now, do they go out and try and attack from the off, or do they try and sit in, get a foothold, and maybe pick us off? Because I think if they open themselves up, like Hearts did, Hearts started, gave us an early scare 2 minutes in or something, but it was because they continued to go forward. That's how we picked them off. That's how we found ourselves 2-0 up, despite how hectic it was after 20 odd minutes.
Yeah.
Do you think Rangers are clever enough, if you want to use that term? Is smart enough
and
to do that, or does he just go for it?
I don't know, in terms of how they approach the game, they can't afford to concede early. First 15-20 minutes, Rangers cannot afford to lose a goal, because if they do, they could easily go down 2 or 3, and that is a disaster for them, because the league title challenge would be over. So in terms of how they approach the game, I am by no means a manager, and I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't know how to do it. You can approach it in two ways. Like you say, you can come out and try and be expansive and play football early doors and try and get the goal to kind of rock the home support a bit, make them a wee bit nervous. Or you can sit back and try and just soak up the pressure early. But when you do both those things, there's a risk you're going to concede, and that is what they cannot do early at Celtic Park, in my opinion. If Rangers concede early, it could be curtains. So yeah, I don't know how I'd approach it if I was Cologne. Honestly, I genuinely wouldn't have a clue how to do it. It'd be interesting to see what they do, though, because it's just that he's been to Parkhead before, he's lost. He scraped a draw in the derby before. He's not been very successful against Rodgers, but we know what Celtic are going to do. Celtic are going to come out the traps flying in the first 15 minutes and get that crowd right behind them, get the wind in their sails. Maeda will be attacking Tavernier. Whoever starts in the right, Forrest Kuhn will be on it. Barisic or Sterling, whoever's playing left back for Rangers, getting the cross into Kyogo. The nice rotations edge of the box, lights at Atati and O'Reilly. Celtic are going to be coming out the traps flying, I assume, this weekend. And that's what you always expect in a derby game from Celtic. So it doesn't really matter what Rangers do in the opening 15 minutes. I think regardless, Celtic are going to get chances. And I think if they take one or two of them, then it could be an interesting afternoon.
Yeah, but we'll see how it pans out. There's a bit of confidence going through there. I think, as we say, as the comments are saying exactly what we did, we need to just take care of business. Don't allow anything that could happen regarding officials to have any bearing on the game. But no, I think for me, it's got to be a fast start. We've got to get out there. I do think an early goal will, again, this term I like to use, I think it genuinely will burst their ball, because they've went into games against us and they've been important, but this is the first time where they have really truly had to win.
Yeah.
And we've seen the sort of mentality, we've seen the mind space that they're in, that they can sometimes crumble under that. You've got to give them, whether you want it or not, you've got to give an element of credit. At the game at Ibrox, yes, we didn't help ourselves there, but they did keep fighting the good fight. But that's always down to the fact that you've got your home crowd behind you, fighting that fight and having that mentality to come back when you're up against it is a lot harder when everything is going against you, whether it's the scoreline, it's the crowd, and I think that could eat them up. I'm going to be a bit cautious, but I still think I think it'll be close. I do. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. But I think it'll be 2-1. I do. I don't know. I just think that I can't put my finger on it. I just think that we will start off and we will do everything, but there'll come a wee point, as there always does, where there's a foothold in the game. I certainly hope I'm wrong. But for us, we need to start. We need to get them out there. We need to get them shaking early. and put them to bed. And I think as well with them, they're almost a stage of uncertainty as well, where their pairing at the back is unknown. I think Balgan might have had a knock. You've got Davis coming in. We've seen what happened the last time it was Davies and it's Suter. Kilgood a field day. More of the same there. They've got guys up front misfiring. There's been things that we've seen social media. They've got fans falling out with their right back, we've got their left back. We've got fans having a go at their goalkeeper. We've had all this from the, perfect diving, award-winning Wolves multi-million-pound signing. So who knows how it's going to manifest itself, but I think that all these distractions can bring themselves in, and I think they're going to maybe paint themselves into a corner in terms of the expectancy, and hopefully that will be their undoing.
Yeah, it'll be box office, whatever happens. There seems to be across the city a lot of disruptions. There's certainly more unity at Celtic than now for me, and it seems like Celtic are the force who are joining together and coming together and building the momentum ahead of this game. Even look at the performances. I have no doubts that if Kilmarnock had 11 men at the weekend, they could have taken something at Ibrox, and that shows you how poor their kind of performances have been lately. But I think everything goes out the window when it's a derby game, because anything can happen, whether it be a decision, I don't know, whatever happens. But it'll be a really good game the weekend. Really looking forward to it. And I think, I don't know, I'm still not confident enough to make a score prediction or anything like that, because you can see it going either way, honestly. It's gonna be really tough.
It's always hard, isn't it? You don't want to put your neck on the line and it to go one way or another. What I would say is I'm confident that Celtic won't lose the game. That's more than I've went from being at the start of the week of thinking, we can't beat them, then we're having a bad day, we should steamroll them, to sort of thinking, we'll be closer to thinking we won't lose. Either way, it doesn't matter. As we find ourselves in a right positive position. The key thing is obviously not to lose the game. A win, I think, as we've said a million times, it puts it completely to bed. A draw, still in a strong position. That gives a wee bit of added nerves, because the next one's Kilmarnock on that pitch, and we've not done well there, but we put a ghost to bed the other week there when we played against Hearts, so there's no reason why we can't continue that on. But I think if we win this game, I think we just end up going on with steamroller the rest of the season. And I actually think that possibly you could see Rangers dropping points, but one game at a time, as the manager says, one game at a time, as the captain says, and I think that's the way we've got to look at. We've got a right as fans to be excited, we've got a right to dream, but we still do, again, not to be dreaded, bring it back down to reality. Nothing's done yet.
Yeah, I know.
There's still various potential outcomes that come in a season. It's nothing as a given. We've still got work to do, and we can't always focus on the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Still, anything can happen in these next 3 games. Bottom line is, Celtic are in the driving seat at the minute, but anything could happen, and anything probably will happen.
Well, that's us. We've just gone short of an hour there, as it says. Thank you to everybody that's joined us live to watch. And again, also, if you're watching retrospectively, we really, really do appreciate it. It's good to get these wee afternoon chats out, isn't it? It's, cracking day outside, talking about Celtic. It goes all good. But we'll be back. There'll be a game around the corner. Tomorrow, we'll get the standard. We'll get the big Friday press conferences, no doubt. We'll get the manager. Who are we going to get for the player side? I don't know, but that usually gives you a indication of who it's going to be. I'm going to say it's James Forrest. I think that's who they're going to wheel out. I think they'll wheel out James Forrest, and that'll give you a wee preview that James Forrest is probably going to start against them. But we look forward to that, and of course we will be back Friday night to look forward to the game, and then of course the big one kicks in the Saturday, and we'll be back to talk about that as well. And hopefully, as we've said here, it'll be a talk about a positive one, eh?
Hopefully. Here's hoping.
Hopefully.
I'm not entirely confident yet.
I'm
but
getting nothing out. Yeah, I'm keeping to
know.
I'm prodding. I'm trying to get that bit. No,
listen, if I have a few beers on Friday night, then I might be a wee bit more confident then. But I don't know.
No, we'll be back in when Friday, as we says. We'll have a wee look. We'll look at see what's happening in both press conferences, not just ourselves, but as we always say, you've got to have a wee look and hear what's saying there. Maybe we'll get an indication of what to expect come 12 o'clock or 12:30 on Saturday morning. But anyway, take care of yourselves, whatever you do with the rest of your day. We will be back, as it says, to cover that game again. Thank you for joining us. As it says, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, give it a like and share it. Get more bodies back in as we try to get to our next milestone of 500 subscribers. Thank you again, everybody, and have a cracking afternoon. Take care and hail, hail. See you later.